about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
On the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dahlia, 1-877 DOCDALI. So, interestingly, I am noticing that a lot of people are struggling, and we're going to be talking about the shutdown and other things, and we got some great news, in terms of, luckily Trump signed the bill and all that. But right now we're kind of coming into a very stressful time again. People are get sick. We knew right before the holidays people would start getting sick. People are looking at their insurance premiums. There's chaos as it pertains to, the Affordable Care Act, which was chaotic to begin with and the way it was designed. And so there's a lot of anxiety about people and their health. And then on top of that, there is some confusion as it pertains to vaccines, as it pertains to what should they do. And it is a chaotic time, and that's okay. Critics of this administration and people supporting this administration, I think we can all agree that it's in a reset. And so I like to be here to try to guide you all. And I know it's, not easy to, try to kind of, anticipate what you're going to need for next week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now. And so what I always tell everybody to do is take a step back. Now, I'm noticing a lot of people were not wanting to get sick, and this week they're getting sick, and they're calling up the telemedicine companies panicking, saying, I need something. I have to travel. And I worry that they're going to make the wrong decisions. And so first and foremost, I want everybody to take a deep breath. Okay? It's, the holiday season is always stressful. Government stuff is always stressful. It's the shutdown was ridiculous. Should have never happened. And thank God for Democrats coming to their senses and signing the CR like they should have. But you have to make some decisions today. All right. If you're a federal worker, hopefully the money comes into your bank soon because you need that money soon. I know with air traffic controllers are going to try to pay them within the next 48 to 72 hours or 24 to 48 hours. For the rest of the federal workers, I am sure the money's going to come soon. In terms of those of us that are figuring out what to do with this next cough, cold, flu season, what to do with travel, etc. What I always do in my life is I always anticipate the worst. I always have plan B, C, and D. And every time I do that, I'm able to go through things a little less stressful. Now, when I fly, I take the shortest trip possible because I work so much that if my flight doesn't come in Sunday night at 10:30 p.m., I feel like I'm screwed. Well, then, fly back Saturday or anticipate, have plan B. Tell your boss, look, Monday, because of the travel chaos and all that, I'm anticipating there could be some problems. What should we do? I don't want to miss work Monday, but I also don't want to panic and get mad at flight attendants and be abusive like what a lot of people are doing. I want to make sure I'm calm and cool. What should be plan B if I can't get back on Monday or the following Monday, etc.? What if I get sick? Do you guys ever plan when you travel for if you're sick? I do. I'll pack the medicines I think I will need. The ibuprofen, some Zofran. If I think, let's say I'm going to get, some sort of pneumonia, I might carry an extra antibiotic or UTI. Thank God I never need them. So they're kind of old. If they're expired, you need to throw them out. But if you don't think you're going to be able to go to an urgent care or see a doctor, plan what you can with medications that you have to pack. Make sure they're in your carry-on. Don't have them in your suitcase. And then if you are going to be traveling and staying extensively somewhere else, double check with your insurance where you could go. We should be doing that in town. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada. And if you asked me which hospital I could go to, I could name one on my insurance. And I think I know the hospital system well enough, so I know I could go to any of those. But is it changing now with the new plan? Do they want me to use a different hospital as the preferred? So make sure you know where to go. And then if you are going to be out of state, contact your insurance on where they want you to go if you're out of state. Don't just assume you have no coverage. You may still have coverage. but make sure you have that plan. And if you do have a plan, yeah, it's easier. We in school planned fire drills all the time. There were always fire drills. So when my house had a fire, I wasn't panicked. Watching the room burn down, part of the house burn down. I mean, my dad had to grab me and get me out of the house. I didn't have any socks and shoes on because I was really fascinated by the smoke and the fire, and I was watching it. I was like, oh, this is interesting. But, yeah, because I was a dumb kid. But, when you plan it out, everybody can be very relaxed and calm about it. So now, do you usually get the flu? Do you usually get COVID? If you do, you might want to consider vaccinating if that helped you. Do you usually run out of medications? Do you usually have an issue where you need to see a doctor and your doctor's not available? You might want to consider making an appointment with your doctor, even if it's just a checkup. It's really hard to get preventative medicines online. If you're like, look, I'm going on vacation, I want an antibiotic just in case. Most telemedicine companies won't do that because of all the antibiotic overprescribing. But if your doctor knows you and says, look, every time you travel, you get pneumonia, or you get a COPD exacerbation, or we don't want to wait till you're sick. With telemedicine, we're here to help when you are actively sick. But if you say, look, I'm going on vacation, so I want a steroid, I want a Z-Pack, I want Cipro for a UTI, I want a steroid cream for my eczema, you're not going to be able to get that online. So make sure you reach out to your medical provider. And also, one of the biggest pieces of advice I give everybody is anticipate the unexpected. Right? What happens if you lose your job? Are you ready? Are you going to lose your insurance? And I know people are like, I don't want to think that because if I think that, I jinx myself and then the bad luck happens. I think we should always be thinking that. What is our plan? I remember my parents in the 80s were saying that they read something saying you should have at least 3 to 6 months of your income in your savings in case you lose the job. And I remember my parents saying, we barely have a month. We don't have that. So these are just, anticipate what could happen. I know it's not a very positive, fun segment on my show. I apologize. I got good news coming up. But, if you're prepared, it's less damaging. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away. Hey guys, it's Dr. Dahlia. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our fantasy football pocket guide for beginners found on Amazon or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
Increase fuel economy up to 7.9% with Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme, the solution to maximize your engine's performance and fuel economy. Whether you're driving a sports car or a daily commuter, Gasoline Extreme is specially formulated with PEA to deep clean. Don't settle for an average driving experience. Upgrade to Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme and go further on each tank. Order now on Amazon or HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer. He's the best. And big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So the House passes the CR that the Senate sadly had held up for about, 43 days because even though the Republicans voted for the CR, the Democrats wanted to hold off, citing Obamacare and other reasons to not fund the government, which I thought was a big, big mistake because people weren't buying that. And when senators were open about this is our only time for leverage. This helps us. Who does it help? So thank God 8 people who vote with the Democrats, 1 an independent and 7 Democratic senators, came to their senses, including Jackie Rosen of Nevada, because her sister Senator Cortez Masto was always signing to reopen the government. And Nevadans, were pretty ticked off. And so she listened and they listened to Nevadans. So, and that's how senators are supposed to be legislating. They are supposed to be listening to their constituents. So thank God, senators came to their senses, signed the bill. Then it had to go back to the House. The House had to approve it and then sent it to the president's desk. I think Trump signed it at 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, his time. I mean, thank God Obama or Biden wasn't in the White House, because to wake a Biden up and, then find the auto pen or so at least, and you saw it was President Trump signing it. There was the press corps there and all that. So government shutdown over, the longest in history, lasted 43 days. Absolutely ridiculous. So is it over? No, it's not. Still not over. The federal workers are like, show me the money. Show me the money. From what I'm understanding, from the office, the OMB, the White House, and this is being confirmed by CBS News, some federal workers will get their back pay by this Sunday. So that's still, 3 days away? And then the majority of, I think the rest of the federal workers, everything will be made whole by November 19th. Now, that's nice, but they need the money 43 days ago. The other thing, too, is what people are kind of forgetting is when federal workers weren't working, what were they spending on? I mean, did they go to the movies? Did they go to your store? Did they go to your restaurant? So everybody started to hit that. And, excuse me, I don't think we know the full implications of what this shutdown caused economically. You're hearing, this many billions of dollars. We'll know when we hear that some company said, look, 43 days, all those federal workers that were supposed to be coming to my store, or my shop in Washington didn't. So we lost 43 days of revenue. I can't get that money back, they'll say. And so when you start looking at those types of vendors now not making money, because they needed demand, and if your federal workers weren't there with needing their staplers, paper, etc. So there was a huge trickle down effect. This wasn't just all about the federal workers. Small shutdowns we could overcome, not something like this. And I'm hearing some of the Democrats, I don't know if it was Hakeem Jeffries, but somebody said, we got nothing out of this. This isn't about you. It's about it's about the people. And we don't want any political party. If I hear that the Republicans say, guys, you need to do this because it helps Republicans, that's not my focus, to help Republicans or to help Democrats. My focus is what helps America. Being shut down did not help America. The funding is not going to end November 22nd, which was what the original CR was. It funds the government through January 30th. SNAP benefits, I believe, are going to be protected all the way till next September 30th. The senators want to make sure this doesn't happen again. And what's very interesting is we're hearing more and more that there were a lot more Democratic senators that really want to sign the CR. But they were so fearful of cancel culture or the quote-unquote guillotine, which was alluded to during this shutdown from other Democratic leaders, that I think a lot of Democratic senators breathed a sigh of relief. And my message to you all, this was my message to Dr. Fauci. This is my message to Nazi soldiers. This was my message to everybody. You do what's right. You don't, your loyalty is to your constituents. Your loyalty is to America, not your political party. And that's where things keep going wrong. I mean, if I was a senator and I knew that federal workers weren't getting paid, that TSA agents were being forced to work for free, that air traffic controllers were forced to work for free, it's a slam dunk. I don't want you guys in pain. That I'm here for you. I mean, when you take that oath, you're there for America. You're there to help. You're not there. You're supposed to do no harm. We doctors pledge that, and we live by not doing harm. You as senators should as well. And I understand the Democrats feel fighting the Republicans helps America in the long run, but you lost a lot of people when they were looking at what was going on. Not to mention now there's even less trust in the government. If every time there's a continuing resolution, somebody could say, you know what, let's bring up Obamacare again, or let's bring up the border wall, or America's screwed. And look how vulnerable we were. I mean, we don't have, we might get some jobs numbers, but apparently during the federal people think, well, the government doesn't do anything. Some departments do things. And look at what happened. People waiting for their IRS refund. People wait. These are things that people need so that they could go and spend money for you. You have a job because of the economy. And if people aren't spending money, you might not be a federal worker, but your client is a federal worker. So yeah, this was a cluster and a half. Now, is the shutdown over? Well, until everybody gets paid and life goes back to normal, no, we're going to still feel the ramifications. I said yesterday, for every week of the COVID lockdown, it took at least a month to try to recover for that single week. So for those people who were locked down for months, it took years to recover. So same thing. With this shutdown, for every week of the shutdown, it takes at least a month to recover. So I'm anticipating if it was 43 days, or which was 5 weeks, it's going to take at least 5 months to recover. Now that includes economically, that includes flights, that includes, because what happened with air traffic? Well, now that all these airlines had to refund money to people that they didn't want to. They need that money to operate because they have to pay their pilots and their staff and their crew. So now what's going to happen? They're going to jack up the prices. I am very grateful. I have a couple, trips I have to do. One is a medical conference. Another is a wedding. Thank God I got those tickets early. And still, I thought the tickets were too overpriced. I looked now to see how much they cost, to see if the price went down or up, skyrocketing. Because these airlines need to now make up for this travel chaos. And by the way, still, I believe 6% of flights are being grounded because we still don't have enough air traffic controllers coming back to work. Even if there's air traffic controllers that say, look, I want to be there, we're being told our money might not come back to us till Sunday. I have to still pay rent. I still have to buy food so that I'll come back on Sunday. So the longer this goes, before everybody can get back to normal, you need to then deal with the bottlenecking. You need to deal with the delays. All these individuals who have been stuck that now need to get back home, they get first priority, and they should. Now you have a whole new influx of people saying, yeah, but I want to go to grandma's for Thanksgiving. It's going to be a mess. Don't expect the airports to be anything other than chaotic Thanksgiving week. Luckily, Thanksgiving comes a little bit later. I usually like Thanksgiving coming early because then there's more holiday shopping weeks and it helps, businesses during the holidays. But luckily, Thanksgiving comes a little bit later. So, we might be able to overcome the delays and get enough air traffic controllers back by Thanksgiving. But it's still going to be chaotic and it's still going to be a mess. Not to mention, look at all the people who are overworked, who need days off. You can't hire and recruit more individuals that quickly and make sure they're trained. People quit, and I don't blame them for quitting. I don't blame any air traffic controller. All I do is have blessings for them and TSA agents and everybody else who was working. So is the shutdown over? Legislatively it is, but the ramifications are going to go on for weeks and months, if not longer. This was a mess. So now what do we do January 30th? What if Democratic senators want to complain about Obamacare again? It's interesting because the Republicans have been complaining about Obamacare the whole time, too. Let's start fixing Obamacare so this doesn't keep happening every time we need to sign the CR. 1877 Doc Dolly, don't go away.
Looking for a gift that can actually help secure someone's future? It's Mark Falter's new book, Common Sense Income Strategies. It makes the perfect gift for that special someone in your life. Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using time-tested strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. To learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Secure your future with Common Sense Income Strategies by Mark Falter. Again, to learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635.
Thank you all for tuning in. 1877 Doc Dolly, 1877 DOCDALI. So this is a no-brainer, but we have been talking about colon cancer for years and how one risk of colon cancer is the processed foods. The nitrites, the nitrates in your food can be affecting the very delicate lining of your intestine, which is why we tell you to increase fiber, because if you poop regularly, that stuff can't sit and affect your bowel wall. This is something we've known for decades. Well, we have another study that has come out saying eating more ultra-processed foods is tied to an increased risk of precancerous, colorectal growths or polyps in women under 50. This is a study published on Thursday in JAMA Oncology. Now, these adenomas or polyps can later turn into cancer. Now, this is important because even though we've known that this can cause colon cancer, up until recently, colon cancer was something that we usually saw on older individuals. In the last 20 years, we have seen colorectal cancer cases skyrocket in younger individuals. Now, I had diagnosed a couple young people with colon cancer. One was a 26-year-old weightlifter who had blood in his stool. I said, sorry, whenever there's blood in the stool, we want to make sure we know where the blood is coming from. I'm going to send you to a GI doctor. The GI doctor, who was my doctor, Dr. Spashikov, calls me up saying, that was fascinating. What made you decide to send this 26-year-old? I go, because he had blood in the stool. He said he had colorectal cancer. And he was a weightlifter, and he thought he was just constipated because of his protein drinks. But he had blood. And because he had blood, I needed to make sure we knew where the blood was coming from. And luckily, Dr. Spashikov did the colonoscopy and found the cancer early. So from what I understand, he survived and did really well. I haven't been in touch with him all this time, but at least we caught it early. But seeing rates of colorectal cancer rise exponentially in people under 50 kind of begs the question, what's going on here? Well, one thing that's pretty obvious is our crappy food. You used to eat home-cooked meals, grab a salad, now most people's diet is a sugary cereal from the grocery store, a burger on the run, maybe a frozen pizza at night. These are not fresh foods. When I was younger, I didn't have a lot of money. I remember trying to eat top ramen as often as I could because at the time they were 5 to 10 cents a pack. I, remember having a potato and I ate half that potato for dinner. And then the other day I could have the rest of that potato for dinner. I was super skinny because, again, I didn't have money for food. And however, I did work at Jack in the Box. And anytime I could try and eat, I did. And so you pretend you dropped the food on the floor and you got to throw it out. Like, oh, I dropped this, I'm throwing it out. And then I would eat it. I didn't throw it. I didn't drop it on the floor, though. I pretended. But I got food in me. But unfortunately, if that's your diet, that's not healthy. And I've had some polyps. Now, thank God I've been doing my colonoscopies and nothing has turned to cancer, but it's concerning. And ultra-processed foods are now the bulk of the average diet. It used to be you'd have your milk, your eggs, your lean meats, your vegetables, and then as a treat, there might be, a cookie or no, now people's average staple is processed food. And that's scary. It's also linked to depression, type 2 diabetes, dementia. Dr. Chan and his team used data from 29,000 women who participated in the Nurses' Health Study 2 that was established for female registered nurses back in 1989. Women were between 24 and 42 when they enrolled in the study, were followed 24 years from 1991 to 2015. Every 4 years, they had to fill out a questionnaire about their diets, and everyone had at least one colonoscopy before age 50. They said the researchers looked at whether the women were diagnosed with precancerous polyps, either adenomas, which were likely to return to cancer, or serrated lesions. While only 5% of adenomas are cancerous, about 75% of colorectal cancers start out as adenomas. Serrated lesions are still considered precancerous, but are linked to fewer cases of colorectal cancer. So they found a connection, according to NBC News, between eating more ultra-processed foods and developing an adenoma before age 50. They did not see any links between the serrated lesions and the foods. So, I've always said that, by the way, 1,200 women of this 49,000 did go on to develop adenomas. And I don't know how many ended up having cancer, but we don't wait. When you see a polyp as a clinician, we remove it right away so that can never turn to cancer. Now, the colonoscopy is one of my favorite, not PrEP, I hate the PrEP, but it is one of my favorite screening tools because it's the only one that cures and prevents cancer as it screens. A PSA is great, to check for prostate cancer, but when you get that blood test, it doesn't help your prostate directly. A mammogram is a great screening tool for breast cancer, but it won't do anything right then and there to minimize your risk. A colonoscopy does, because if we see the polyp when we go in with the scope, and I've done these, we remove that polyp so it never could never could turn to cancer. So you get pruned as you go, and it's amazing. It's just you got to go for the colonoscopy. Now, Obamacare was supposed to cover colonoscopies, screening colonoscopies. I've noticed that the prices I've been paying for my colonoscopy is in the thousands, when you would think the ACA, it would be covered. So, and why? Well, because if they see a polyp and remove it, immediately it goes from screening to diagnostic. And listen, these medical centers should be paid, but Obamacare was supposed to pay them. So I don't mind paying my share, because I want them to, trust me, they're saving my life. They deserve that. But you tell an insurance company, look, you have to pay for something. They are going to just, like a lawyer, only use the words only follow the words that are there and not imply a more general take on it. So if they say you need to pay for a screening colonoscopy, so they pay for that scope to go in, but are they paying for that scope to come out and take the lesions with it? It doesn't cover that part. I mean, obviously the scope comes out, but if you need polyps removed, that's got to be done then and there. So this is reminding us that we need to quit eating like crap. Now, why else is colorectal cancer on the rise? Is it just ultra-processed food? Well, other theories is HPV virus, where we have a much more, shall we say, enthusiasm for other sexual activities as we did decades ago. And so one concern in the medical community is more people might be engaging in sex that can affect the colorectal area. And HPV is a virus that is associated with colorectal cancer. Could also be HPV is the most common STD, is the most common STD out there. Chlamydia is the number one reported STD. So what's the difference? Well, chlamydia is common, but we screen for it very regularly, so it gets reported, it gets counted. Many people with HPV, it doesn't get counted. Now that women are waiting to get pap smears and they're not going in for regular gynecological exams, we aren't necessarily picking up if they have HPV. And we believe that HPV is pretty ubiquitous. And also, if somebody does carry HPV vaginally, does that, or cervically or vaginally, does that affect them in the whole genital area, including rectum? So HPV could be a big part of it. Another is our obesity. Obesity is a major risk factor for colon cancer. So we're getting heavier as a whole. Now, smoking is also a risk factor. Even though we have fewer people smoking, we still have a lot of people smoking. And we have a lot of younger people smoking. That could be it. And then you also wonder about sitting for long periods of time, constipation. We have a constipation epidemic because people are not eating fiber. And I think that could also increase our risk of colon cancer. Look at how I taught you guys something. 1-877-Doc-Dolly. Don't go away.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. You know, we've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles, along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American Magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive the stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective. Right now, for a limited time, the New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.
We are back on the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Doc-Dolly, 1-877-DOCDALI. So another study has come out saying that the majority of Americans are feeling that their job is affecting their mental health. And I know when you hear those headlines, some of us are mixed, saying, well, look, you got to eat. I mean, the olden days, you had to eat. And so, you just kind of sucked it up and you got through it. On the other end, I've worked in toxic places. And no, take this job and shove it. You're not going to get the better of me. I don't need this toxicity. And so how do you cope, especially in light that your job might be in jeopardy. So, very interestingly, Target has come up with some new rules for their customer service staff, where if you are within a certain number of feet from a customer, smile, wave, acknowledge it, ask them if they need help. I mean, this is something that you used to see back in the 70s and 80s, right? For those of us that have been around that long. And you're seeing on Reddit, Target workers complain about that. Not all of them. And they're saying, I don't wave. That's creepy. Customers don't want to be bothered. And when I look at this, I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, the biggest threat right now to workers is AI taking over our jobs. And you have a company such as Target allowing you to show your relevance. Saying, look, you're going to greet people. You're going to smile. Help them out. Show corporate, show the world. This is going to be a test case to see how Target does compared to other AI shopping models. And if they show human contact helps, that saves not only your flipping jobs, but many other jobs. And instead, you're seeing on Reddit people complain. And you're like, well, wait a second, you're in customer service. You're working for, what do you expect? And so I'm a little nervous about the attitudes towards things. Now, I get, so some people, their mental health is affected because they don't know if they're going to have a job past January 30th. Like, for example, federal workers. Federal workers will not get fired through January 30th. So if there's going to be a reduction in force and, they at least have a job till then. But that's stressful to think that you might not have a job after January 30th. If you think AI is going to take over your job. If you think after the seasonal hiring and the Christmas shopping is done, you're going to lose your job. That is stressful. And then working with toxic people. Oh, my gosh. You're doing your job and people just hate you. They don't like you and they go after you. That's not easy. And, if you're around toxic people, as much as I want to say, tell them to take that job and shove it and leave, there's toxic people everywhere. Unfortunately, there's some groups that work really, really good, but like all cliques, there ends up being somebody left out and there's some, and then they turn on each other. And so you do start to see that. And then, you work at places where somebody is sleeping with somebody else. And then somebody's flirting with somebody else. And it's just, those places I would not say to work at. But what if you have no choice? You got to feed your family. And you have people who are toxic. I mean, just affecting you're just trying to do your job and leave. And they're coming into your space, or you're forced to work with somebody who's toxic. What do? Well, this is your job and your family comes first. And first and foremost, you want to enlist your manager and say, look, okay, I want to do my job. I'm doing my job. My productivity is great. I want to make you guys happy. I don't want to call out any particular shenanigans or say whatever, but I need to know that these people are not going to be messing with my job and the mission and my job duties. I want to get my job duties done. And if the manager is a crap manager, nothing's going to get done. But that manager is good, they're going to intervene. And I worked with somebody who there were complaints by the customers about what this person was doing. They were predatory. And so I told the manager, I go, look, and the manager said, actually, I want to know about this. I'm glad you told me. I need to be aware. Now, I don't know if anything happened to the person who was the predator or not, but it's these are, things have to be able to run smoothly. And if you don't feel like you could fix where you work, you leave. But I also think that the more people stand up, like, how we stood up to bullying, I think the more people that stand up to this, we might be able to change things. So if there's some BS and there's whatever, and somebody's sleeping with somebody and they're whatever, and it's affecting, and there's that person gets seniority and that person gets priority. Your job is to build your resume. Your job is to pay your family And if you don't think you're going to advance in that company and you have another job, leave. If not, tell everybody to stop the crap and say, look, I'm here to do a job, and be very vocal about it. If they want to fire you for speaking the truth and being honest and trying to do your job, let them fire you. And you will get fired for doing your job and doing your job well, especially when people say you make us look bad. People like me less because you're doing a good job. So stand up, even if it's in an email or whatever, and say, look, guys, these are the things I'm doing that I'm trying to get done. Can, all the other stuff be set aside or at a minimum, because we don't want a toxic workplace. I want to work with everybody so it's not toxic, but this is not helping, and we got deadlines, and I would like us all to work together and get through this. And if you get fired for that, they don't deserve you. The reason why Uber and Lyft has become, DoorDash drivers has become popular is people don't have to deal with toxic work environments. They don't have to deal with toxic people. If you have a manager who's flirting with you, bring your husband to work. Say, look, he's going to hang out with us for a little bit here. Yeah, and you can also tell them, stop it. Now, listen, I want to work here long term. And you don't poop where you eat. You never poop where you eat. And any sort of relationship that extends beyond the work relationship will always make things go sour. And it always comes back to haunt people. And so, when I've ever been in that position where I had to turn somebody down, say, look, I love working with you, but I don't want to have a romantic relationship with you. Once that happens, this falls apart immediately. I don't want this to fall apart. I want to work with you long term. And if they don't get the point or they read it the wrong way, you got to get away from that person. But your mental health, how do you protect your mental health when there's so many other stressors? Well, we sadly get ourselves into a position where we get complacent. And so we get a job, we go, well, I'm going to plan on not losing this job. Like we spoke about when we opened the show, how we could get through a lot of the holiday chaos and a lot of the cough, cold, flu season with a little bit of prevention. Like an ounce of prevention is a pound of cure. And so we see the writing on the wall that there's going to be an issue with our job. We see the toxic people coming in. We see somebody is sleeping with their manager, and that person is getting all the priority, and they're able to manipulate the whole entire department. And you start to see that, and you're like, well, what you should already be 7 steps ahead. But the problem is we can't be. You don't want to leave a job because you think something's going to go wrong just for another job and jump into another cesspool. But unfortunately, if you don't have plan B, you're in trouble. I've always lived my life where I had plan B. One of the reasons why I worked 3 part-time jobs when I was at UNLV trying to get my undergrad degree is in case I lost one, I could at least increase hours at the other so I could still support myself. Now, I'm not saying to work 3 part-time jobs, but you might want to consider having that backup because it looks like, the work toxic culture isn't going away. And if you can't fix it, it could consume you, and your mental health comes first. And feeding your family. 1-877 Doc Dolly.
You are about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
We are back on Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. So this headline caught my eye where 10% of college students in some of these prestigious universities need to take remedial math just to get started on their college education. A report was released by the University of California, San Diego, which has about 45,000 students. And they said that they have found math skills dropping and that the number of first-year students whose math skills fall below middle school level has increased now to 1 out of every 8 new students. How the hell did they get into college? Now, before you had the SAT, a lot of colleges, and I don't know if UCSD or some of these other schools, I think that's the university, the UCSD. Yeah. I don't know if many of them have thrown that out. Remember, because they said that it's, not representative of all demographics and it could hurt individuals. But the SAT was a screen. And I mean, it has to be valid. It has to be, encompassing what, all school districts teach. But that's why the Department of Education has failed so miserably. They're supposed to make sure there are standards. And if 1 in 8 students, according to this study, has to take remedial math, and by the way, that's usually just to get started for college. You have to take remedial math, and there's also remedial English classes, which really confuses me because if you did take an SAT, that would have caught that, and your scores would have been representative. But now that we're not testing it, people are getting into college. And so what's happening here? Well, one is we're really failing at the school level. And I think a lot of teachers, let's just pass them. Let's just pass them. Now, there has to be responsibility. There has to be where you're taking ownership of what that student does. And if that student has fallen off the curve, they need to go back and see how that teacher is teaching. You need to figure out and make sure that teacher isn't failing the students, not teaching. Is it that these schools don't have enough faculty for remediation? Is it that there's not enough teachers where people are being taught by subs? God bless all of them, for trying to tackle on education. But is it that they just don't have enough faculty where kids aren't learning? Is it that kids are moving a lot? See, I went to 12 schools. And what really bothered me with that was I would leave one school that was just about to do something, like teach metrics or something. And then the other school just finished it, so I wouldn't get it. And then I would be missing certain things. Yet Macbeth, I got 3 times. And it's not the school's fault. It's just I went to 12 schools. My folks moved a lot. That's why, as I've said, I think school really needs to change, where our core classes are in the morning. It's identical to other schools. And then the afternoons are all your life skills, practical learning, introducing kids to every single trade, depending on their age as they grow through school, your 3rd graders, 5th graders, 7th graders, etc., such that by high school, by sophomore year high school, everybody is proficient, graduates, and then junior and senior year is where they get their trade certification or their associate's degree. And now we don't have to pay for free college. Everybody, by the time they're 18, has at least an associate's degree as well as a trade certificate. And I think that would really make our students a lot more competitive in the job world, make sure they're more proficient in things. And even if some of those rotations in the afternoon have to be used for remediation. But now you have the academic teachers free. You have the practical teachers and you have the academic teachers. And so you then have more wiggle room with who can help these students. But college, you are supposed to be, college used to be, you had exceptional proficiency. Now I'm noticing it's, if you got through high school, we'll take you. Because colleges want to make money. Well, then how are you screening them? And then you're making them take remedial classes, so you're forcing them to pay for an extra course that should have been addressed for free in high school. And how these kids are getting through, I don't know. And it's crushing. And I've seen it. I was playing blackjack a couple years ago, and there were people who couldn't add their cards. Somebody was counting on his fingers Another one was, yay, I got 21. And we're like, no, that adds up to 19. Are you faking it or you just can't add? And these were not English as a second language individuals. These were Americans. Like, what's wrong with you people? How can you not add, I mean, especially in Vegas? I mean, really? That's why I don't mind kids playing cards. I don't want them gambling. But cards help you. I learned a lot of my math from cards. My dad was a gambler. And I don't want kids to be gambling per se. But boy, did I learn how to add 8 and 5 or 8 and 3 or 7 and 4. And so we're really at a loss when our young kids can't do what we used to do. And I know a lot of people are saying, but there's a calculator now. You could just ask Siri how to add two numbers. Hey Siri, what is 8 plus 5? And they give you an answer.
8 plus 5 is 13.
Thank you. And then he says, you're welcome, but I shut that off. So, people are using calculators, using phones. I remember getting in trouble. We could not use our calculator during a test. Trigonometry, we had to do the sin, cos, tan, and so we might have been able to, but you had to be able to do your math on your own. We're not pushing these kids like we used to. And now these colleges are like, what do we do with students who don't know math? They put them in remedial classes. At least somebody's working with them. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away. Hey guys, it's Dr. Dahlia. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our fantasy football pocket guide for beginners found on Amazon or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
At Hotshot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
Diesel fuel cetane levels.
the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hotshot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020 for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Battling for years and years stuck in the endless cycle of minimum payments could take decades. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. That's 800-878-6020. 800-878-6020.
Back on the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So, as you know, Trump is trying to make America great again, make America healthy again, make children healthy again, and now he wants to make America affordable again. So the first thing people look at is, well, what's going on with our Thanksgiving dinner? Apparently, Thanksgiving dinner is going to be 5% cheaper than it was last year. Now, egg prices are going down. A lot of parts of foods are going down. If you order beef, though, beef is going to go up. Beef prices are up. But Thanksgiving dinner about 5% cheaper. The problem is with inflation and people aren't noticing it. In fact, people are still concerned that they're paying more at the grocery store than they used to. Gas prices are down. Many states have gas in the $2 level. Where I live, still most gas stations are, Nevada has some of the highest priced gas. But when you're in Texas and the Gulf states, the gas prices are cheaper. The closer you are to the refineries and where they're pumping and oil, it's a little cheaper. But you go out west, gas prices are still high, unfortunately. But they're still way down from 2022. So that's a good sign. But, Trump wants to make America affordable again. I hope he does it. Just how? So one thing that has been looked at is the 50-year mortgage. Now, I am no financial expert, but to own a home for 50 years and to owe the bank for 50 years doesn't, to me, sound like a great deal. Interest screws you. However, that is being touted as a possible solution to get people into a house. At least then their money isn't going to rent and their money is at least going to equity. So I don't know. A 50-year mortgage means you can amortize the rest of the balance of your loan over 50 years. That makes a 30-year loan much cheaper in terms of your monthly payments and gets people into a house sooner. I'm a little nervous because I believe it was during the Clinton years where they had 0% financing so you could get into a home with no money down. And then people had the balloon payment, and that then caused the housing crisis a decade later. I want us to be very, very careful, to promise, look, you'll get into a house and then just deal with the payments later. Because the problem with politicians is they want to show what they did in their 4 years. And yeah, you could get a lot of people into homes, but what is going to happen 10 years from now? Are they going to have balloon payments? Are they not going to be able to, pay off a 50-year mortgage? And then who deals with the ramifications then? But the housing crisis that happened and I remember patients telling me that they're not even paying on their house anymore. They're just not paying. And they get to live rent free. Nobody's kicking them out because there's too many people that need to get evicted. So one person said they were, living in their house for free for a while. And then I remember another one of my patients said, Dahlia, look at this. I got into a $500,000 home. This is where I live now. I go, that's awesome. Where are you working? He's like, same place. I go, you work at 7-Eleven. He's like, yeah. I go, well, that's awesome. But they're paying you that much to have a $500,000 home? No. But I got in with no down payment. So I'm going to live here until they kick me out. Well, that sort of attitude is not the healthiest for the economy. So I'm not exactly sure but apparently one of the ideas they have is how do we get people into a home cheaper if we can't get the home prices down? Well, you could try to build more homes, but the lumber and all that, these homes are getting more expensive and the real estate's getting more expensive. So maybe we get people into a home cheaper by lowering their monthly payment. So I see the logic. It's just I don't know if it's the best idea. And then, avian flu. Avian flu and the bird flu affected, I think, a lot of our chicken prices and egg prices. Well, that got curbed. And I know they've been talking about vaccines, and a lot of people do not want a vaccine in their poultry. They're a little nervous about consuming something. Although, we've used anti-pathogen measures in our food for a while, but many people are concerned about that. And so I don't know if that was there was a popular sentiment among farmers during the Biden years for the vaccine. But if avian flu comes back, and it's starting to in other countries, that could then affect our food prices and go up. So to make America affordable again, what does Trump need to do? All right, because we don't want empty promises, but he is a money guy. And if anybody is going to at least make a dent in these high prices, I think he has some ideas. Well, first and foremost, we got to deal with the medications and the pharmaceuticals, which he's working on. And, we're not going to pay more for what, other countries are buying for the same product. And that was brilliant. I think other presidents would have wanted to do the same. They just didn't have the cojones. Trump has that pull. He told Big Pharma, you're not charging America more than Canada, France, Italy, not happening. We pay the same. And prices are going to come down. He's also launching that Trump RX that'll allow people to get their Ozempic and Mounjaro and Wegovy and their weight loss drugs and other drugs cheaper. They think it's going to start at about $350 a month and then go down to $275. That's a lot different than $1,100 a month. So getting medical prices down allows people to shift less money towards their medications to other things. Then food. Well, let's look at what we're spending on for food. SNAP benefits. SNAP benefits should not be going to, we have, I think 1 in 5 people in D.C. are on SNAP benefits. So we have a lot of people requiring SNAP benefits. Okay, well, if they work, and if there are work requirements for healthy people that aren't, disabled, then that could help put more money into the system, not to mention, hopefully, eliminate the need for them needing the SNAP benefits. But have SNAP benefits for healthy food. If we have people eat healthy food, then maybe it'll be, we'll get it back tenfold in terms of health, economy, etc. So don't waste money on bad food. We also need to assist our farmers. The farmers got really screwed over during COVID because of the lockdown. And I don't understand why we didn't learn our lesson, especially with the senators not wanting to sign the CR with this shutdown. So you had farmers that were working on a supply and demand model, and then COVID happens. And even though they allowed marijuana dispensaries to be open, they wouldn't allow restaurants to be open. And I mean, these marijuana dispensaries, the lines were going out the door. I mean, people flood marijuana dispensaries, but they said, no, but no restaurants. Your dental office has to be closed. It made no sense. So now all these restaurants are closed. So where they had to distribute the food, nobody was buying. So we heard a lot of this food, if they couldn't shift or store it or figure out where it goes, they end up losing that money. Well, now you have all those losses. You got to make up those losses. Plus, now how much you grow the next year? When is the lockdown going to end? So these farmers got screwed over. Then they made less food because it costs money to farm, costs money to ranch, it costs money to do this. If no one's buying it, now you have fewer supply, demand goes up, now prices go up. So, and it has taken years to try to recuperate from that. We're going to see that with the airlines. Your flight next year is going to be through the roof, people, because they had to make up for what happened with the shutdown. You could say, pretty please don't do that, but no, they got bills to pay. They're going to want to make up the 43 days of lost revenue from the government shutdown and all the cancellations and the refunds they had to give. So what we need to do to make America affordable again is stop locking down, stop shutting down. All right? That's ridiculous. We need to probably revamp Obamacare. And we're looking at all these subsidies, and all that money could go to other things that could help drive prices down. Instead, that money is going to insurance companies to buy down a premium for a high deductible insurance. It just doesn't work. So looking at where we're spending, and then bring the money in. I love the idea of an external revenue service. If these tariffs are bringing money in, give that money to the Americans. I understand we got to bring down the debt, but let Americans get some of these Doge tax dollars that were wasted and some of this tariff money back into their pockets. Now, Trump does have a plan on his website. He wants to continue to tame inflation. He says breakfast basics index has gone down. 14% everyday essential index has also gone down. Toothpaste, shampoo, toilet paper. They say Americans are seeing prices decline on batteries, computers, etc., fueling wage growth. So if you feel it, great. If you don't feel it, it's not great. So we got to make America affordable again. It's going to take some work. 1-877-Doc-Dolly. Don't go away. We are back on the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. So drawing a lot of attention is the State Department looking at foreigners who are seeking visas to the United States and what to do if they aren't healthy. And certain foreigners coming to the United States, if they have certain medical conditions, like severe debilitating diabetes, kidney disease, even obesity, might be denied visas from entering the United States. Why? Because they are concerned of the increased likelihood that they would require public benefits and financial aid. Now, I know this has caused a lot of criticism, and us doctors are mixed on this, but my family came over having to pass medical exams. This is something that was standard in immigration, where they had to come through Ellis Island, and then my other family later on. So my mom's side of the family came through Ellis Island and had, medical evaluations, which it's not easy. It stinks that they had to go through that, but they did to ensure that they were not going to be a burden on the United States when they came. And then my other family that came in the 60s had to also pass medical exams to ensure that they were not going to become a burden on the U.S. And that's kind of how, and unfortunately, immigration has been done because there's only X amount of money. And so I don't know what it's like now to go to Japan or Canada and to try to become a citizen there if you need medical exams. I know to get married in California, I had to do a syphilis and HIV test. For me to get a marriage license, medical testing, that's nothing new. And I passed. I did not have syphilis or AIDS, and I passed. But medical testing is not anything foreign. But it's a different subject now because we want to be a country that understands that some people are born this way. Some people are given a bad lot as it pertains to health. And so, what do you do? Well, in the olden days, you weren't going on the government dime. So in the olden days, when you came to this country, you had to prove that you had your own money or you had a family who was sponsoring you or a job. Now people are coming to this country, throwing themselves at our feet, saying, take this on. Jesus, take the wheel. And many of them are very sickly. They need medical care. One of the reasons why they're coming is because they need medical care. And as a doctor, like I said, I'm mixed. One of the people I work with in the media, his grandmother was suffering from COVID, needed oxygen, but they wouldn't give her oxygen if she didn't pay for the hospital visit up front. So they kept sending her home, and she kept desaturating, coming back to the hospital, but they wouldn't give her oxygen. They wouldn't send her home on oxygen. So people want to live. They want to survive. And in America, the secret's out. You could get treated for free in America with the promise that you pay later. Well, that's not working anymore. And unfortunately, hospitals can't survive. Look at what happened with Denver Health, where they had to have the state step in and provide them funding because they had so many illegal immigrants that had come across that needed care that got bused to Denver because it's a sanctuary city, that they weren't getting paid for their medical care. So, if people who have diabetes, chronic kidney disease, cancer, these are things that can cost Americans a lot of money. How do we care for them? And of course, Americans want answers. They want to say, look, I thought there was a hospital bed with my name on it. They were wrong. There is no hospital bed with your name on it. Now, when you go to the hospital, you are told to wait, or you're in the waiting room, you're in the parking lot, you're in the ER, and if there's no beds, there's no beds. And people are now wanting answers going, why aren't there any beds? I've never been sick. I haven't paid my taxes. I've been in this community. I now need help. I need you. And we can't help them. Look at what happened in New York with these nursing home patients that got COVID. Governor Cuomo, saying that the hospitals were overwhelmed, shipped all these people back to their nursing homes. So then they got everybody else sick, and it continued to spread like wildfire. Okay, not cool. So this is not an easy question because we doctors never have to answer this question. We triage, and we hate having to triage because we don't want to turn anybody down. But when I was an ER doc, whoever was in front of me, I took care of. And that was fun. That was for the bean counters to decide whatever. I'm going to take care of you because that is my job. I took an oath. I'm here to help. Okay, well, that's great. And that's what I did. But unfortunately, when there's not the funds, somebody has to decide who gets the care. Is it the American citizen that, has been paying their dues, or is it, somebody who really, really needs the care? Obesity. That's going to be the big one you're going to see all the media jump on. If somebody is obese, will they be turned down at the border? We do not want to fat shame. We do not want to bias against anybody. But the thinking behind that, the rationale, is if somebody is obese, they have a higher risk of joint issues, a higher risk of diabetes, a higher risk of heart disease, a higher risk of a whole variety of things. In fact, there was a study saying that if somebody is obese, they are more likely to spread flu longer because flu can hide out and their flu shot may be less effective. Now, to me, that shouldn't deny them entry into the, if you are healthy and you pass the physical, I think you should be allowed in. But what happens 5 years from now, 10 years from now? See, the problem is we have such a high demand. People want to be here. And the average person is obese now. 1 in 2 individuals are obese. Having that rule would definitely limit. Now, but Trump has always said he wants the best of the best. He wants people that are ready to roll up their sleeves and start working. And obese people can work. Obese people can do everything. But are they going to later be a medical liability? Well, skinny people get cancer. Skinny people get diabetes. Skinny people get arthritis. So America is now at the point where everybody got let in. And now that they're tightening up the border, they're like, well, who are we going to give visas to? We only have X amount of visas. Is it going to be somebody who's going to contribute to America? Is it going to be somebody that's going to help America? Do we have the option to pick and choose? Other countries pick and choose. Now, that was not the American way. We would take anybody. They're hungry, they're poor, but that's what they said. My family had to wait 20-some years. They could not come during the Holocaust. And America was picky, unfortunately, but they have been picky before. And then they weren't picky during Biden. And now we have other ramifications and issues with illegal truck drivers and accidents and criminals that came across. So I am against us turning somebody away because they are obese. But I am in support of doing what we used to do to ensure somebody is not going to require now our refugees and asylum seekers are one thing, but somebody saying, look, I want to start a new life here. Are they going to be productive? My family, when they came here, had to immediately work. They got their work visas. They had to learn the language because how do you work in America and help Americans out when you can't speak? They had to learn the language. So I do like the idea of helping them become productive. Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
As an organ donor, your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on. In fact, you could save up to 8 lives and restore sight and health for many more. Sign up right now online as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. You'll be happy you did. And just maybe, someone else will be happy too. Go to organdonor.gov. It saves lives. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. We have some breaking news. Senator John Fetterman has been rushed to the hospital after having a ventricular arrhythmia issue that caused after falling over this morning, although you wonder if he fell because of that. The Daily Mail is reporting that the Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman was on a walk early Thursday. He sustained a fall near his home in Braddock. He was transported to the hospital in Pittsburgh after the accident, and then doctors determined he had a ventricular, quote-unquote, flare-up, which is, I believe, a ventricular arrhythmia, where maybe he went into an abnormal heart rhythm, VTAC, a ventricular bigeminy or trigeminy. There was different sort of ventricular arrhythmias, but they believe that he had that. And a ventricular arrhythmia suggests that the abnormal pulsation of the electricity is not causing the ventricle to beat properly. When that doesn't happen, you get poor pump of the heart. The blood does not go where it needs to go as quickly as it needs to go. And then, unfortunately, it could cause you to pass out. It could also cause sudden cardiac arrest. He's only 56 years old. He felt lightheaded, fell to the ground. He hit his face with minor injuries. And unfortunately, when you don't get proper blood flow, this could happen instantaneously. You fall. So I believe the arrhythmia happened before, and his fall. And so following the incident, apparently he issued a statement saying, if you thought my face looked bad before, wait until you see now. So, he had a bad stroke in 2022. And the stress he has endured with the shutdown, he was one of very few Democratic senators. I think there were 3, but I can only think of the 2. He and Catherine Cortez Masto of Nevada had stayed firm, saying, no, we're going to reopen the government. This doesn't play. And so he probably got a lot of abuse from his Democratic colleagues. And so I worry about the stress on that of his heart. And so he, was in the middle of a campaign, and then he had medical issues then as well. And then he suffered a stroke days before the Democratic primary election. And so he also had a blood clot, pacemaker. He's been through a lot. He ran against Dr. Oz, and he won robustly. And so people are concerned that, he could struggle continuing with that high stress job, whatever he wants to do. It's his life. It's his choice. If somebody has an inability to serve, that's when constituents have a right for there to be a special election, etc. But if he is of sound mind and he has the strength and the will to serve and he wants to do that, he can still serve. I will keep you posted. Hopefully he's okay. Honestly, it's just not easy when you have multiple health conditions. And then you wonder with the stroke, was it because of an arrhythmia? And, was it atrial fibrillation, VTAC, what sort of, shall we say, cardiac arrhythmia it was? So I'm sure we'll get more news. Thank God he's okay and he is recuperating in the hospital. Sadly, Jim Avila has died. ABC News correspondent, 69 years old, has died at the age of 69. Anchor Diane Macedo had announced it. He had undergone a kidney transplant in 2020. His brother donated the organ. Thank God he was able to get 5 years, even more, off that kidney. Unfortunately, though, and we've seen him, correspond for years. Unfortunately, I don't think we know exactly what was the initial cause of death, but unfortunately, he is gone. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So as we talked about, as we opened the show, the shutdown being over is semi-over. Thank God, Democrats came to their senses. The bill was signed in the Senate, went to the House. The House signed it, was able to pass it right away last night. Hakeem Jeffries could have done his marathon 18-hour speech. He chose not to because I think he finally read the room, how people were not happy with this, but he says, he still wants to fight. I'm not exactly sure what they're fighting for. Obamacare was their issue. That was, I think everybody on all sides wants to deal with Obamacare. So not sure exactly what their fight was. I think he has echoed that they didn't gain anything from this, that they lost. Americans lost. I mean, this wasn't about Democrats and helping Democrats, but I believe they thought they could use the CR. Just stupid people. Honestly, look, listen. If Democrats are upset that they don't have full control of the House, the Senate, the executive branch, judicial branch, then come up with policies that Americans want. Right? Midterms can always change things, but this isn't about helping the D's or the R's. Okay, this is about passing legislation that helps. And, it's interesting because you hear from their side, well, we need to pack the court. We need to add statehood so we get more numbers. You don't hear that from the Republicans. You don't hear from the Republicans, well, what we need to do is change things so we can add more Supreme Court justices or so we can add more states. You don't hear that. The gerrymandering, which started back in Massachusetts, hundreds of years ago, and, has been, highlighted and by Illinois, et cetera. Yeah, that finally got done in Texas, and now California does it. And so, you are starting to see a little bit of pushback with Republicans on that. But if you're going to do legislation, let's just make it about the people and not about the D or the R. And that's not where politics has gone. And I think Democrats could have done something so much better. Their holding out point was Obamacare, and Schumer saying people cannot afford their premium. So this has been an argument we've been making the whole time. That's why the ACA was a crappy bill. That was what you came up with. That was the cause to cause all this mayhem. People have flights. People have places to go. Businesses were relying on federal workers going to work. I mean, this screwed over the economy by billions and billions of dollars. For what? So you could act like you stood up to Republicans? See, that's what the Democrats are doing. They're thinking that they need to show a fight, that they are going to lose a primary because somebody is just bowing to a king. And no, Trump won because people were tired of what Biden did. Biden's presidency was a failure. Read the room. All right? People don't want a civil war, not the average American. The average American wants a strong border. The average American wanted those hostages home and wanted the war in the Middle East to stop. The average American wants the Ukraine-Russia war to stop. The average American does not want Taiwan invaded by China. The average American does not want to pay more for prescription drugs when other countries pay less. The average American does not want to be tariffed more than other countries. The average American wants to pay less in taxes. The average American wants cheaper homes. They want cheaper food. They want cheaper gas. So what were you advocating for? What were you fighting for? Obamacare subsidies? Those have to happen anyway. Obamacare is a cluster. They really made a mistake on this one from a policy standpoint. And there was so much they could have done that would have, if you really wanted to argue about something, but why use the CR for that? Instead, you cause such mayhem that, nobody ticks a person off. Their plane getting delayed. And when you say, well, it's the Republicans are not negotiating. I even saw that on Facebook. Facebook, like, well, this is the Republicans' fault. How? They signed the CR. Well, they won't negotiate on Obamacare. Obamacare wasn't theirs. I mean, trust me, they're going to deal with the subsidies. That isn't supposed to be attached to the CR. Otherwise, the CR will never pass. And so I think the average person's like, no, you know what? This really wasn't the Republicans. I mean, the Republicans wanted to get the government going, and luckily, it now is. 1-877-DOC-DOLLAR. Don't go away.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American Magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive the stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective. Right now, for a limited time, the New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.
Hey guys, it's Dr. Dahlia. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our fantasy football pocket guide for beginners found on Amazon or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
Increase fuel economy up to 7.9% with Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme, the solution to maximize your engine's performance and fuel economy. Whether you're driving a sports car or a daily commuter, Gasoline Extreme is specially formulated with PEA to deep clean. Don't settle for an average driving experience. Upgrade to Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme and go further on each tank. Order now on Amazon or HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.